The video started playing before I even understood what I was looking at. A shaky phone recording, blurry faces, warm lamplight, clinking glasses, the familiar chaos of a family dinner I hadn't been invited to. Then my father's voice cut through the laughter. "You know what your problem is, Leah? You think throwing money at everything makes you important, but you're still just a worthless burden who can't even keep a man." I froze. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The voice came again, his voice followed by a burst of laughter from my brother Kenneth and my aunts and uncles. My name was the punchline. The screen dimmed as my hand trembled, but I kept watching. I had to. My Uncle Gerald's voice, the one filming, said something like, "You raised a good daughter, Frank." And my father snorted. "Generous? She owes me. I put a roof over her head for 18 years. This is just her paying me back. Besides, she's got nothing going on, no husband, no kids. Might as well make herself useful as our cash cow." The table erupted again, the sound of laughter rolling through the small dining room like a wave of contempt. Even Kenneth joined in, smirking like it was all some kind of joke. My throat went dry. I paused the video, then pressed play again, like maybe I'd imagined it. But no, the cruelty was real, casual, easy for them. I sat there in my small Portland apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the fridge, the smell of cheap coffee, and the faint rain tapping against my window. Everything felt smaller, tighter. I'd been paying my father's mortgage for 4 years, $2,000 every month, $96,000 total. And I'd done it without missing a single payment, even when rent crept up, even when groceries got expensive. And now, I was a cash cow. For a long time, I didn't move. My phone screen was still lit. The video paused on my father's smirking face. I could see the reflection of my own face in the glass, eyes red, jaw clenched, a ghost of the daughter who still wanted his approval. Uncle Gerald sent another text. "Sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Let's just forget about it." Forget about it. As if betrayal could be erased by pretending it didn't happen. I turned off the video, then stared at my dark phone screen, the rain outside now steady and insistent. My mind was racing not just with anger, but with years of memories that suddenly made sense. The times he'd brushed off my achievements. The birthdays he'd forgotten. The way Kenneth was always the one with potential, while I was just responsible. Leah, the daughter who showed up, who paid, who never needed praise. I thought of my apartment, second-hand furniture, thrifted curtains, discount groceries. I'd told myself I lived simply because I was practical, but now, I realized I'd been living in self-imposed scarcity, so my father could live comfortably in the house I'd grown up, in the same house where I'd learned to disappear quietly when things got loud. The rain outside turned heavier, drumming against the window like a heartbeat. I wanted to scream, to call him and demand an explanation, but I knew what would happen if I did. He'd deny it. He'd call me too sensitive. He'd twist it until I ended up apologizing. I'd been down that road too many times. Not this time. I sat on my couch, the city's glow filtering faintly through the curtains, and whispered to myself, "Don't react, plan." It was strange, the calm that came after that decision. My hands were still shaking, but something in me hardened. He thought I'd never stand up for myself. He thought I'd always keep paying, always keep quiet, always keep being the dutiful daughter. But he didn't know me anymore. He didn't know what silence could do when it was finally broken. Outside, thunder rumbled somewhere beyond the city skyline, and for a fleeting second, I imagined my mother's voice, a soft echo in my memory saying, "Enough, Leah. Enough giving. It's time to take back your peace." I took a deep breath, saved the video to my laptop, and opened a new folder. I named it Mortgage Evidence. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it. But I knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. People like to say that love between family is unconditional. But growing up in my house, love was more like a loan, one that came with interest, guilt, and silence as currency. After I saw that video, I couldn't stop thinking about how it had come to this, how I'd ended up paying the bills of a man who hadn't hugged me in 20 years. So, I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I made coffee, sat by my window, and started tracing the story backward. My name is Leah Henderson, 32 years old, logistics coordinator for a shipping company in Portland. I make enough to live modestly, not enough to be extravagant, but enough to help. And that's what I'd done. Every month, for 4 years. Helped. $2,000 to my father's mortgage, like clockwork. Never late. Never questioned. The irony? My father used to say that depending on others was weak. Stand on your own 2 feet, he'd bark when I was a teenager trying to ask for school money. But when it came to him somehow, the rules didn't apply. I remember the first time he asked me for help. It was 4 years ago, just after his retirement. He called out of the blue, a rare thing. I remember staring at the phone, surprised to see his name flash across the screen. "Leah, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his tone oddly hesitant. He explained how his pension wasn't stretching far enough, how the mortgage was swallowing his savings, the bank's threatening foreclosure. "I might lose the house," he said, voice heavy with shame that wasn't entirely real. Then came the hook. "I can't ask Kenneth. He's got a family to feed." That single sentence was designed to hit every weakness I had, the guilt, the yearning to matter, the illusion that I could finally be enough. "How much?" I'd asked. $2,000 a month, he said. I hesitated for maybe 5 seconds. "I'll do it." There had been a pause. I remembered holding my breath, waiting for the magic words I'd always wanted to hear. "Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it," he'd finally said. Not "I love you," not "I'm proud of you." Just appreciation, like I was a well-behaved employee. At the time, it had felt like victory. I'd replayed that moment again and again. That's how deep the hunger for approval went. Back then, I'd just started my job. I remember making spreadsheets to calculate what I could cut. I canceled Netflix. I stopped eating out. I taught myself to sew because I couldn't afford new curtains. When coworkers invited me for drinks, I'd smile and say, "Maybe next time." And every first of the month, I'd transfer the money, feel a quiet satisfaction, and imagine him telling people, "That's my daughter. She takes care of me." Except now, I knew what he really told them. "She owes me." I scrolled through old messages on my phone, looking at the history of our conversations. The evidence was everywhere, in little bubbles of text. Me. "Sent it this morning, Dad. Should be there by 10 a.m. Him. "Got it." That was it. No emoji, no warmth, no gratitude. Just acknowledgement that the transaction had cleared. And I'd convinced myself it was fine. I told friends my father was old-fashioned, not affectionate, just practical. I'd lied to protect the story I wanted to believe that someday he'd see what I'd done for him and be proud. Now, sitting in my dim apartment with that video burned into my mind, the truth hit me like cold water. He hadn't asked for help out of need. He'd asked because he knew I'd say yes. Because he counted on my guilt, my loyalty, my silence. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. The cheap bulb flickered once, casting shadows across the walls, and I thought about my mother. She'd died when I was 7, soft-spoken, gentle, the kind of woman who could calm storms with a whisper. After she passed, our home became quiet in a different way. My father worked constantly. Kenneth and I grew up like tenants, sharing space instead of siblings. He was 3 years older, handsome, charming, always good at making Dad laugh. He learned early how to perform admiration, how to feed Dad's ego. I never stood a chance. I remembered one night when I was 10, I'd drawn a picture of our family for art class, Mom smiling, Dad holding my hand. I ran to show him while he watched TV. He looked up once, said, "That's nice, Leah. Go play outside." Kenneth laughed. "Nobody cares about your dumb drawings." Dad chuckled along. That tiny, harmless laugh. It had carved a mark so deep I still felt it decades later. When Kenneth barely graduated high school, Dad threw a barbecue. When I graduated with honors, he said, "Good. At least you're not completely useless." That night, I realized love in our family wasn't earned by goodness or effort, it was earned by flattery. Kenneth was the golden son. I was the background noise. After college, I moved to Portland for work and told myself distance would make things better. It didn't. The calls came only when he needed something, a birthday card, a favor, a payment. And every time, I gave it. Because giving was my way of staying connected. But now, that connection felt like a noose. I went to my kitchen and poured the rest of my cold coffee down the sink. The smell lingered, burnt, bitter, metallic. My reflection in the window looked unfamiliar. A woman with tired eyes who'd traded years of her life for scraps of affection. I opened my banking app again. The list of payments stared back at me, perfectly consistent, almost beautiful in its precision. I scrolled until the beginning 4 years ago, the first transfer. Then I added the numbers in my head. $96,000. The air left my lungs. I thought about what I could have done with that money. A car, a down payment on my own house. Maybe a trip somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. Instead, I'd built a life out of sacrifice and handed the profits to a man who saw me as his obligation refund. I set my phone down. The apartment felt heavier than ever, like the walls were listening. For the first time, I let myself say it out loud. He used me. The words were small but electric. Saying them felt like flipping a switch in the dark. For years, I'd hidden behind excuses. He's old, he's tired, he's trying. But no. He chose to take advantage of me. He chose to mock me. I stood there for a long moment, staring out at the city lights, and then, quietly, I began to plan. Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity. The truth had cost me $96,000. I was going to make sure it bought me something in return. There's a strange calm that comes after heartbreak, not peace, exactly, but a kind of stillness that sits heavy in your bones. That's what I felt the morning after the video. No more tears, no more shock. Just clarity, cold and sharp as glass. I got out of bed, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. The folder I'd created the night before, mortgage evidence waited on the screen, empty except for that one video file. I stared at it for a long moment, then started to fill it. Month by month, I downloaded the proof. Bank statements, confirmation emails, screenshots of text messages. Every transaction showing $2,000 leaving my account. Every got it reply from my father. I organized them chronologically, labeled each file by date, until I had a timeline of my own quiet servitude. By the time I was done, the folder looked like a case file. My case. As I scrolled through the evidence, I thought about all the little moments I'd brushed off, the half-laughs, the dismissive looks, the unanswered calls. How many times had I told myself, he's just not good with emotions? No. He wasn't incapable of love. He just didn't see me as someone worth giving it to. Around noon, my best friend Fiona called. She'd been my roommate in college, a loud, warm, no-nonsense woman who could read me faster than anyone else. "Hey, stranger," she said. "You okay? You sound weird in your texts." I hesitated. "Can I tell you something messed up?" "Always." So I told her, every detail, the accidental video, my father's words, the laughter, the mortgage payments. When I finished, she was silent for a moment, then said quietly, "Leah, that's evil. That's not just mean, that's calculated." "I know." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm done pretending this is normal." "Good," she said, voice firm. "You've been bending yourself into knots for that man since I met you. Maybe it's time you stop saving him and start saving yourself." Her words hit harder than she probably realized. Start saving yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's smirk frozen on the video. Around 2 a.m., I got up and turned on the lamp. The city outside was quiet, just the occasional hum of a distant train. I opened my laptop again. My cursor hovered over the video thumbnail. I played it one last time. The laughter sounded uglier now, like a pack of hyenas. Then I began to write. Not an angry message, not a confrontation, a plan. I started drafting an email. "I'm writing to share some information about the mortgage payments I've been making on my father's behalf for the past 4 years. Attached, you'll find documentation of every payment totaling $96,000, as well as a short video that provides context. I won't be making any future payments." It was simple, factual, undeniable. No accusations, no dramatics, just the truth, sharp and clean. I attached the files, added my relatives' emails one by one, Uncle Gerald, Aunt Patricia, the cousins who'd laughed at that dinner table, even a few of my father's close friends. People who needed to know the truth about the man they'd defended all these years. But I didn't hit send. Not yet. Timing was everything. The next mortgage payment was due in 12 days. If I stopped the payment now, my father would notice within hours. He'd call, angry, demanding to know why. That was when I'd send the email when he'd be most desperate, when everyone would be awake and checking their phones. The thought of it both terrified and thrilled me. I wasn't a confrontational person, never had been, but maybe that was the problem. I'd been too quiet for too long. Maybe the only way to be heard was to stop whispering. Over the next few days, I functioned like a ghost. I went to work, smiled at my coworkers, replied to emails, attended meetings. Nobody could tell that I was carrying a storm in my chest. Every night, I came home, reviewed the evidence again, made small edits to the email, checked my timing. Each revision stripped more emotion from it, until it felt less like revenge and more like justice. On the 9th night, Fiona called again. "You sound calmer," she said. "I think I am." "That means you've decided something." I hesitated, staring at the folder on my laptop. "Yeah," I said. "I'm going to send it." She exhaled softly. "Leah, I'll back you no matter what. But be ready. When people like your father get exposed, they don't apologize, they retaliate." "I know." "Then promise me one thing, don't let him twist this. You didn't destroy the family, you just stopped financing your own mistreatment." That line stayed with me long after we hung up. The weekend before the payment was due, I spent hours double-checking everything. I printed copies of my bank records, saved backups on 2 USB drives, and even emailed one to Fiona just in case. Then, Sunday night, I scheduled the email. Send at 6 a.m., Monday. Right when people checked their phones over morning coffee. Right when my father would realize the payment hadn't come. As I set the timer, I caught my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I looked tired, yes, but there was something new there too. Strength, maybe. Resolve. Before closing the laptop, I whispered to the empty room, "This ends tomorrow." I turned off the light and lay in bed, listening to the quiet hum of the city. For once, I didn't replay the video. I didn't cry. I just waited for the morning. I woke before my alarm, long before the sun had even touched Portland's gray skyline. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of my refrigerator. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart thudding softly, eyes fixed on my phone. 6 a.m. Somewhere in the invisible machinery of the internet, my email had just gone out straight to every address on my list. The truth was loose now, and there was no taking it back. For a long time, nothing happened, just silence. I made coffee, stood by the window, and watched the sky turn from charcoal to pale silver. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff before the echo returns. Then, at 6:15, my phone buzzed. Once, twice, then a dozen times. Notifications flooded the screen, texts, emails, missed calls. By 6:30, it was chaos. Uncle Gerald. "Leah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Frank felt that way." "Aunt Patricia. This is humiliating for everyone. Why would you air private family business like this?" "Kenneth. What the hell is wrong with you? You're destroying this family over a stupid joke." And then my father. Message after message. "How dare you? You vindictive little. After everything I did for you, you're dead to me." The words rolled in, furious and frantic, but I didn't respond. I just sipped my coffee, staring out at the rain that had begun to drizzle against the glass. For once, their noise couldn't reach me. I opened my laptop and watched the email tracker light up with little read receipts, blue dots one after another. Aunt Patricia, Uncle Gerald, my cousins, my father's old fishing buddy, his church friends. One by one, they were seeing the truth. And that was when the real explosion began. By 7, my phone was vibrating constantly. Facebook tags, group chat notifications, voicemails. I made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, while the digital world burned around me. I wasn't ignoring it, I was allowing it, letting them sit with it, letting them know I wasn't afraid anymore. I finally checked social media. The first post I saw was from my father. When your own child betrays you and spreads lies to destroy your reputation, you realize you raised a monster. I gave Leah everything, and this is how she repays me. Pray for guidance. Hundreds of comments, some sympathetic, some angry. Half the people wrote things like, Family should stick together. The other half had clearly seen my email. Frank, I saw the video. Those weren't lies. You called your daughter a cash cow while she paid your bills. You accepted church donations while she supported you? Disgusting. I stared at the screen, a strange mixture of sadness and satisfaction tightening in my chest. The truth was messy, but it was out. Then came a call I hadn't expected from an unfamiliar number. Hello? Is this Leah Henderson? The voice was calm, professional, female. Yes. My name is Catherine. I'm the treasurer at St. Michael's Church, where your father's a member. I just wanted to reach out regarding some financial discrepancies we discovered this morning. My stomach dropped. Discrepancies? For the past 3 years, your father has been receiving monthly assistance from our hardship fund. He told us he was struggling to keep his house, that he had no family support. Based on the documentation you sent, those claims appear to be false. The room tilted slightly. He's been getting money from the church? I'm afraid so. Substantial amounts. Our board is meeting today to decide on next steps. I thought you should know. After she hung up, I sat in stunned silence, my phone heavy in my hand. He hadn't just used me, he'd been scamming his church at the same time. I pressed my palms to my eyes and laughed once, a short, humorless sound. It wasn't even anger anymore, it was disbelief. I'd spent 4 years scraping by to save him, while he'd been collecting sympathy checks from his congregation. A message popped up from Fiona. Holy hell, I just saw your email thread. Are you okay? I called her. Define okay. Fair point. He was taking money from his church, I said flatly. 3 years worth. You're kidding. I wish I was. Fiona went quiet for a moment. Leah, listen to me. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is fraud. He could actually get in trouble for this. I know. How do you feel? I paused. Vindicated, but also hollow. That's normal, she said gently. You spent your whole life taking care of people who hurt you. It's not easy to let go of that habit overnight. Her words hit me deep, because even now, beneath the anger, a small part of me still wanted to fix it, still wanted to make everything right again even though they never had for me. By noon, my phone had 6-7 unread messages, 43 missed calls, and 21 voicemails. I listened to a few. My father's voice, raw and slurred with rage. You think you can humiliate me like this? You're nothing, Leah. Nothing. Your mother would be ashamed of you. Delete. Kenneth's voice. You've always been jealous of what Dad and I have. Grow up. Delete. And then one from Uncle Gerald. Leah, I owe you an apology. I should have said something that night. I should have stood up for you. What Frank said was wrong. I'm sorry. That one I kept. By mid-afternoon, my father's social media was a war zone. His post was shared, reshared, commented on by people who'd known him for years, neighbors, co-workers, church members. Some defended him, others didn't. Then came a final message from Catherine, the church treasurer. Our board has decided to suspend Frank Henderson's membership and report the incident to authorities for further review. Thank you for bringing this to light. I stared at it for a long moment, the words glowing faintly on my phone screen. Suspended, reported. My father, who once bragged about being a pillar of the community, was now a public scandal. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The air through my window smelled clean like metal and pine. I made another cup of coffee and sat down on the couch. The exhaustion finally caught up to me. I detonated a truth bomb that couldn't be undone. But as the storm calmed, I realized something strange. I didn't regret it. Not even a little. He'd built his world on lies. I'd simply turned on the lights. By the next morning, my inbox had turned into a battlefield. Apologies and accusations collided in real time, half the family siding with my father, half quietly reaching out to me like survivors of a shipwreck. I hadn't even brushed my teeth when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I should have trusted that instinct. Miss Henderson? Yes. This is Robert Barnes, legal counsel for Frank Henderson. I froze. My father had hired a lawyer. He spoke smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it 100 times. Your father is deeply distressed by the defamatory materials you distributed this week. He's considering pursuing legal action unless you issue a public retraction and apology. I almost laughed. Defamation? Everything I sent was true, I said. I have documentation for every payment, and that video came from my uncle. Regardless of its source, he replied, you had no right to circulate private family conversations. You've caused significant emotional and reputational harm. Reputational harm? My voice broke into a short, bitter laugh. What about the emotional harm he caused when he called me worthless for 4 years straight? The lawyer's tone didn't change. Miss Henderson, your father is willing to be reasonable. No, I cut him off. He's willing to manipulate. Tell him if he wants to sue me, I'll see him in court, and I'll bring the receipts. All $96,000 of them. I hung up before he could respond. For a few seconds, I just stood there, the phone heavy in my hand, the world oddly quiet. The rage didn't come this time, just clarity. If he wanted to escalate, so would I. I called Fiona immediately. He got a lawyer, I said as soon as she picked up. Already? That's fast even for him. He's bluffing, right? Probably. If he takes it to court, everything becomes public, record, the video, the church fraud, all of it. He's trying to scare you into backing down. But just to be safe, you should get your own lawyer. Any recommendations? I'll ask around. By noon, she'd sent me a name. Grace Patel, mid-50s, sharp, no nonsense, known for defending whistleblowers and harassment victims. I made an appointment. That night, Portland's streets glowed wet under the streetlights as I walked into Grace's office. Small, tidy, lined with framed degrees and books. She looked up from her laptop and smiled faintly. Leah Henderson, she said, shaking my hand. I've read your case notes. I'll be honest, your father doesn't have a leg to stand on. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. So I'm safe? Oh, he might still file something, she said. People like him often do. But he won't win, and if he tries, we'll countersue for frivolous litigation. Her confidence steadied me. He also committed fraud, I added quietly. The church confirmed it. Grace raised an eyebrow. Then he's in much deeper trouble than he realizes. If they report it, he could face criminal charges for misrepresentation or theft by deception. The idea of my father in handcuffs made me feel queasy, not victorious. I don't want revenge, I said. I just want him to stop. Then we'll make that clear, she said. I'll draft a formal notice of defense and a warning to cease contact. In the meantime, document everything. Calls, texts, threats. Keep a record. I nodded. Already doing that. By the time I left her office, the drizzle had turned into steady rain. I pulled my coat tighter and inhaled deeply. The air smelled clean, sharp like something had been washed away. The next day, my brother Kenneth showed up at my workplace. I was in a logistics meeting when Jennifer from HR poked her head in. Leah, she whispered, someone's here to see you. He says he's your brother. My stomach dropped. Tell him I'm busy. I tried, she said, but he's not leaving, and he's loud. I excused myself and walked to the lobby. Kenneth was pacing near the reception desk, face flushed with anger. 2 security guards hovered nearby, watching him. Leah, he snapped, we need to talk. I kept my voice even. Not here. You've done enough damage. Dad's talking about killing himself. Are you happy now? The words hit like a slap. If he's serious, he needs professional help, I said quietly. That's not on me. Everything was fine until you decided to play victim. Everything was not fine, I said, my voice rising for the first time. He was calling me worthless behind my back while I paid his bills. That's not fine. You've destroyed our family. No, I said. He did that years ago. I just told the truth. Kenneth's jaw tightened, his voice breaking. You'll regret this. The security guard stepped closer. Sir, you need to leave. Kenneth glared at me one last time, then stormed out, slamming the glass door so hard it rattled. I stood there trembling not from fear, but from something else. Exhaustion. Back in my office, Jennifer offered me a sympathetic look. You okay? Yeah, I said softly. I think I am. Still, the scene left me shaken. I called Grace during lunch. He came to my office, I told her. He made a scene, said my dad's suicidal. Document it, she said immediately. And Leah, consider filing for a restraining order. It sets a legal boundary. If he violates it, there are consequences. That evening, I started the paperwork. By the next morning, I was too drained to check my phone, until it buzzed again, a new number. This time, an older woman's voice, gentle and trembling. Leah, it's Margaret Simmons. I used to be your mother's best friend. My breath caught. I hadn't heard that name in years. Margaret? Hi. I've been following what's happening. Gerald told me everything. Oh, sweetheart. Your mother would be so proud of you. Her voice cracked slightly, and I felt something shift in me. Proud? For what? Blowing up the family? For standing up to Frank, she said. She never could. He broke her down for years. He was cruel, controlling, made her feel small. She stayed for you kids. But it killed her spirit. Tears welled in my eyes. I didn't know. She tried to protect you. Before she passed, she told me, if anything ever happens to me, please watch out for Leah. She's too kind. She'll give until she's empty. The line blurred in front of me as tears spilled over. Margaret continued, voice softer now. Your mother loved you, Leah. She'd want you to know that saying no to cruelty isn't betrayal. It's survival. N.A. We talked for an hour. She told me stories I'd never heard about how my mother used to sing in the kitchen, about the way she'd stand up to my father until the exhaustion became too heavy. By the time I hung up, my heart hurt, but in a cleaner way, the kind that makes room for air again. That night, an email arrived from Catherine, the church treasurer. Our board met this evening. We've confirmed that Frank Henderson received $48,000 in unauthorized funds over 3 years. We are filing a formal complaint with local authorities and pursuing repayment. This isn't your fault, Leah. You simply told the truth. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the laptop bathing the room in cold light. My father had called me worthless. But right then, surrounded by proof, by allies, by the echoes of my mother's courage, I felt something I hadn't in years. Worth. By the time the weekend came, the storm I'd unleashed had turned into something else, less chaotic, more focused, more dangerous. My father had gone quiet, which somehow felt worse than his rage. The silence was heavy, deliberate, like the pause before an explosion. I spent Saturday morning trying to live normally, laundry, cleaning, grocery list, but every few minutes, I'd check my phone, half expecting another threat, another accusation. Instead, a new message appeared from an unfamiliar number. Hey Leah, it's Julia, can we meet? There's something you should know about your dad. Julia, my cousin, Aunt Patricia's daughter. We hadn't spoken in years. I remembered her as the quiet one at family gatherings, always polite, always keeping her distance. Something in her tone, urgent but careful, made my stomach tighten. Sure, I texted back. When? Tomorrow, 10 a.m. coffee shop on 3rd Street. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept hearing Margaret's words, your mother tried to protect you. They looped in my head until dawn. The next morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. It was one of those gray Portland mornings when everything feels half asleep. I sat by the window, nursing a latte I didn't want, watching people rush past under umbrellas. Julia arrived right on time. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around the cafe before she spotted me. When she sat down, her hands were trembling. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. What's this about, Julia? She hesitated, twisting the strap of her purse. I need to tell you something that happened when I was 16. It's about your dad. My heart thudded. Okay. That summer, my parents went on a cruise and left me to stay with your family. You were away at some summer program, so it was just me, Uncle Frank, and Kenneth. At first, everything was fine. He was nice. Too nice. Her voice wavered, but she kept going. He'd make comments about how I was growing up, how pretty I looked in my swimsuit. One night, I woke up, and he was sitting on the edge of my bed. He put his hand on my leg and started moving it up. My stomach turned cold. I screamed, she whispered. Kenneth ran in, and your dad left. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. When I told my mom, she confronted him, but he denied everything. Said I had a nightmare. And she believed him, or pretended to. She told me to keep quiet, said it would tear the family apart. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The cafe noise faded, the hiss of milk steamers, the murmur of conversation, all of it blurred into static. Julia, I finally said. I had no idea. How could you? She said softly. But when I saw your email, when I saw that video, I realized I'd been protecting him for years. We all had. And I can't do it anymore. If this goes to court, if he keeps threatening you, I'll testify. I'll tell the truth. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was ice cold. That took a lot of courage, I said. Thank you. Her eyes filled with tears. My mom's furious. She says I'm betraying the family, but I think it's time someone stopped pretending. When she left, I sat there for nearly an hour, unable to move. Outside, the rain had stopped, but inside, I felt soaked in something heavier, a mixture of rage, grief, and disbelief. My father wasn't just emotionally abusive or manipulative, he was predatory. That afternoon I called Grace. She picked up on the second ring. There's been a development, I said, and told her everything Julia had shared. Her voice hardened. That changes everything. If your father tries to pursue legal action, this testimony destroys his credibility. Depending on the statute of limitations, it could also lead to criminal charges. Julia's willing to go on record, I said. She'll testify. Good, Grace said. We'll start the paperwork. Sometimes the threat of exposure is enough to stop a man like him in his tracks. I hung up, staring at my reflection in the dark window. My face looked different, older, maybe, but sharper too. The more truth came to light, the less I recognized the person I used to be. The frightened daughter had been replaced by someone else, someone capable of seeing things for what they were. That night, I went for a walk. Portland was damp and quiet, the streets reflecting streetlights in rippling puddles. I passed the house I used to dream about buying, the one with the big porch and the yellow door. For years, I'd imagined hosting holidays there, inviting family, creating something warm where my childhood had been cold. Now, the idea of that made me laugh out loud. Family wasn't built by blood. It was built by truth. When I got home, I opened my email and found a message from Uncle Gerald. Leah, we need to talk about Frank. I hesitated, then typed back, call me. He called almost immediately. His voice was shaky. I went to check on him today. He's in bad shape, drinking, not leaving the house. It's a mess. Gerald, please don't tell me you're asking me to help him. I'm not, he said quickly. But I need you to know, he's unraveling. The church is demanding repayment. His lawyer dropped him after finding out about the fraud. He's alone, Leah. Completely alone. He chose that, I said quietly. I know, but I thought you should know. He's got about 3 weeks before the bank starts foreclosure proceedings. 3 weeks. I repeated the words like they belonged to someone else. When we hung up, I sat in the dark, staring at my phone. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just emptiness. For years I'd been the daughter who fixed things. Now I was the woman who watched them burn down, and for once, didn't try to stop it. Later that night, a thought came to me, small, almost gentle, like a whisper. Mom would have wanted you to keep walking. I looked up at the ceiling, imagining her face, her soft smile. I am, Mom, I said quietly. I promise. I'm walking away this time. 3 days after my talk with Uncle Gerald, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was instantly familiar, uneven, impatient, like he'd been pressing too hard on the pen. My father. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded twice. Leah, I'm writing to ask for your forgiveness. I know I've hurt you. I know what I said was wrong. I'm begging you to show mercy. Help me save the house, and I promise things will be different. I'll make it up to you. Please, I'm your father. No apology for the years of cruelty. No admission of what he'd done to Julia. Just desperation disguised as repentance. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, rereading the words. The old me would have melted, would have heard, please, and forgive, and mistaken them for love, but not anymore. I took out a blank sheet of paper and wrote my reply carefully, my hand steady. Dad, I forgive you for my own peace of mind, not because you deserve it. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean I'll rescue you from the consequences of your actions. You called me worthless. You used me. You lied to your church. Those were your choices. And now, these are your consequences. Goodbye. I sealed it, mailed it, and walked home feeling lighter than I had in years. Forgiveness wasn't surrender this time. It was release. Saturday, Fiona drove up from Eugene to see me. We spent the day hiking through Forest Park. The trail was damp with last night's rain, the air cool and pine-scented. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. "How are you really doing?" she asked as we climbed a small ridge. "Honestly?" I smiled faintly. "Free. Tired. But free. No regrets? None about telling the truth. Maybe about wasting so much time trying to earn love that was never coming." She nodded. "You can't regret being kind, Leah. That's who you are. The problem wasn't you, it was everyone who took advantage of that kindness." We walked in silence for a while, listening to the wind move through the trees. It struck me then how peaceful it felt to walk beside someone who saw me, without trying to fix or control me. When we got back to the car, Fiona turned to me. "You know this isn't the end, right? He's not going to go quietly." "I know," I said, "but I'll be ready this time." She was right. The next morning, Grace called. "Your father's attorney just contacted me," she said. "He's hired a new one. They're threatening to file a suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. They're demanding $50,000 and a public apology." I laughed out loud. $50,000? After he took $96,000 from me and $48,000 from the church? "I told them as much," Grace replied calmly. "We're not settling. If they proceed, we'll countersue for the money you paid, plus damages. I'll also subpoena Julia and any other witnesses. Once your father realizes how much worse this could get, he'll fold." "Do it," I said. "No more running." That afternoon, I came home from work to a new voicemail. His voice was slurred, angry, soaked in alcohol. "You think you've won, don't you? You haven't. You'll regret this, Leah. Everything that happens from here, it's on you." I saved it and forwarded it to Grace, then to the police. It went into the growing file of harassment evidence. That same week, the local news picked up the church fraud case. They didn't name him, but everyone knew. Longtime church member accused of defrauding hardship fund while receiving family support. Within hours, people connected the dots. Comments poured in. "Frank Henderson? I knew something was off about him. He borrowed money from me too, never paid it back. Can't believe he treated his daughter like that." For the first time, the tide turned. People who'd once pitied him now saw him for what he was. The sympathy he'd milked for decades was gone. Kenneth tried to fight back online. "My sister is a liar. She's destroying our family for attention." But it only made him look desperate. 2 days later, I got an email from the mortgage company. "Foreclosure proceedings will begin in 6 weeks if payment is not received in full." The house, the same house I'd poured $96,000 into, was finally slipping from his hands. I should have felt triumph, but instead, all I felt was sadness. That house had been my mother's once. Her garden, her curtains, her laughter in the kitchen. But now it was just bricks and memories. He'd poisoned every corner of it. That night, Aunt Patricia called. Her voice was cold, sharp with accusation. "You've destroyed your father's life," she said. "He's losing the house because of you." "He's losing it because he refused to pay for it," I said quietly. "That's not on me." "You were paying it and you stopped." "Yes. After finding out he called me worthless while spending my money on beer and lies. After finding out he stole from his church. After hearing what he did to your daughter." Silence. Then, "Julia is lying." "Is she? Or are you just afraid to admit your brother is the kind of man who could do that?" Her voice cracked. "You have no right to judge me." "I'm not judging you, Patricia," I said softly. "I'm just done keeping your secrets." She hung up without another word. I sat there for a while afterward, staring at my phone, waiting for guilt to arrive. It never did. The next day, Julia called. Her voice was calm, steadier than before. "Mom's furious," she said. "She told me if I testify, I'm not welcome in her home anymore." "I'm sorry, Julia." "Don't be. I finally see it clearly. All those years, I thought staying silent was keeping the peace, but it was just keeping the lie alive. I'm testifying, Leah, even if it costs me everything. I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. Thank you. We're not just standing up for ourselves, she said. We're standing up for everyone he hurt. Her strength reminded me of Fiona's, of my mother's, of the version of myself I was finally becoming. That night, as I got ready for bed, I walked past my mirror and stopped. For the first time in years, I didn't see the anxious, apologetic daughter who kept trying to prove she mattered. I saw a woman who finally did. The truth had torn my family apart, but it had also set me free. And maybe that was the price of freedom, losing everyone who preferred the lie. It happened on an ordinary Saturday, the kind that sneaks up on you when you least expect another storm. I was pushing a cart through the grocery store, just restocking for the week, when I turned the corner and froze. There he was. My father. Standing in the liquor aisle, cart half full of whiskey bottles and cheap beer. He looked diminished. His clothes hung loose, stained at the collar. His eyes were bloodshot, his face puffy. The proud, booming man who once ruled every room was gone. He blinked, recognizing me. Leah, he rasped. I nodded once and kept walking. But his footsteps followed. We need to talk. I stopped near the frozen foods, every muscle tight. No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes. His voice cracked. I need your help. Against my better judgment, I turned to face him. Help with what? He swallowed. The house. The church is demanding the money back. The bank's foreclosing. Kenneth won't help. He says I embarrassed him. I've got nobody else. The same pleading tone I'd fallen for all my life. Only this time, it landed on stone. You had me, I said quietly. For 4 years, you had my help, my loyalty, my forgiveness, and you threw it away. I made mistakes. I shook my head. No, you made choices. Something dark flickered across his face. After everything I did for you. What did you do, Dad? My voice rose, trembling. You gave me food and a roof when I was a kid, the bare minimum. You never loved me. You never respected me. You mocked me. You stole from people who trusted you. You called me worthless. He sneered, the old cruelty flashing through the wreckage. You're just like your mother. Weak, always playing the victim. That should have gutted me, but it didn't. Instead, something inside me went still. No, I said softly. I'm nothing like her. She stayed and let you break her. I'm leaving. I turned my back on him and walked away. His voice echoed after me, furious and desperate. This is your fault. Everything that happens is on you, Leah. You hear me? This is all your fault. People in the aisle stopped and stared. I didn't. I walked straight out of the store, into my car, and sat behind the wheel, shaking, but not from fear. From release. For the first time, I'd said what needed to be said. That night, as I scrolled through social media, a message appeared in my inbox. I went to school with your dad. He was a bully even then. I'm glad someone finally stood up to him. You're brave. Then another. He cheated my parents out of money years ago. Thank you for exposing him. More messages followed, stories from people who'd seen my father's true nature long before I dared to. Each one was like a small light in the darkness, proof that the monster I'd faced wasn't a figment of my imagination. The next few weeks blurred into a cascade of consequences. The church's fraud investigation deepened. Reporters sniffed around. My father's name became shorthand in the community for deceit and self-destruction. Kenneth raged online, but fewer and fewer people were listening. Then one afternoon, a detective called. Miss Henderson, I'm investigating the misappropriation of funds from Street Michaels. We understand your father may have received $48,000 in assistance under false pretenses. My chest tightened. What happens next? If convicted, he could face probation or even jail time. We'll be in touch. When the call ended, I sat in silence. My father, who'd spent a lifetime escaping consequences, was finally facing them. Part of me wanted to feel pity, but I couldn't. Not anymore. The following week, Kenneth reached out, his first call since the courtroom settlement. His voice was low, defensive. Dad's not going to make it through this, he said. He's drinking himself to death. He's talking about ending it. You happy now? If he's really suicidal, he needs help, I said calmly. Professional help. But I'm not responsible for his choices. You pushed him to this. No, Kenneth. I stopped letting him push me. There's a difference. He scoffed. You've always been jealous of what Dad and I had. Jealous? I almost laughed. He was funneling my money to you, Kenneth. Did you know that? Your down payment, the extra cash he slipped you? That was my money. The cash cow's milk. Silence. Then a week. He didn't tell me that. Now you know, I said, and hung up. When the court date finally came, Grace met me at the courthouse steps. Julia stood beside her, calm but resolute. His attorney wants to settle, Grace said. They'll drop their case if you agree not to pursue reimbursement. Everyone walks away. I looked at her. And the church fraud charges? Those are criminal. They'll proceed no matter what. I exhaled. Then let's end it. Inside the courtroom, my father looked smaller than ever. His suit hung off him like a costume. His hands trembled on the table. He didn't look at me once. The judge accepted the settlement. Case dismissed. Outside, reporters waited. Microphones. Cameras. Miss Henderson, how do you feel about today's outcome? I feel relieved. I never wanted to destroy my father. I just wanted the truth to be known. What message do you have for others in your position? That blood doesn't entitle anyone to your loyalty. Family is respect, not obligation. And it's okay to walk away when love turns into abuse. That night, the clip aired on local news. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some hateful, but many grateful. Thank you for speaking up. I needed to hear this. You helped me find courage. For once, my story wasn't about pain. It was about power. Weeks later, Uncle Gerald called. The house sold at auction, he said. Frank got 30 grand after fees. He's moving to a trailer on the outskirts of town. 1 bedroom, falling apart. It's all he can afford. I nodded slowly. How's he holding up? Still drinking, still blaming you. But, Leah, I think deep down he knows it's over. I know it is, I said quietly. The church case concluded soon after. He pleaded guilty to a reduced charge, 2 years probation, restitution for the $48,000. Kenneth cut contact completely. Aunt Patricia sent one final email filled with venom. I hope you're proud. You've destroyed this family. I deleted it without reading further. But some bonds mended instead of breaking. Julia and I grew close, finding comfort in shared scars. Uncle Gerald called often. Even old acquaintances reached out with apologies. 3 months later, I was promoted at work, a bigger office, a window view, a raise that finally reflected my worth. Fiona drove up to celebrate. Over dinner, she raised her glass. To new beginnings. To freedom, I replied. 6 months later, I saw him one last time. The same grocery store, different aisle. He looked older, now shrunken, gray, hollow. When he saw me, he turned away, pretending not to notice. I let him. That night, I went home and opened an old box of photos. My mother smiling, her arms wrapped around me. A world that once felt safe. I whispered, "It's over, Mom. I finally did it." Then I opened my laptop. My name is Leah, and I'm here to tell you it's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. That line became the first post on my blog, a place for people like me, survivors of quiet betrayals and invisible wars. It grew faster than I ever imagined, filled with voices finding strength in truth. Years later, when I learned of my father's death liver failure, alone in his trailer, I didn't cry. I'd already said my goodbye. Sometimes the greatest act of revenge isn't rage, it's peace. And peace, I finally understood, is what freedom feels like.